The sun was falling low in the desert sky, painting the sand in shades of gold and red. The wind blew gently, carrying fine grains that danced in the air like tiny sparks. Amir walked ahead of the small group, his boots sinking in the soft sand. He was a calm man with sharp eyes, who had spent many years searching for signs of the past. Behind him, Rafi followed, carrying a bag filled with tools and water bottles. Rafi was younger and full of energy, always asking questions and always looking for something unusual. The rest of the team walked a little behind, talking quietly and keeping their eyes on the endless dunes. For days they had been searching for the ruins of an old settlement that some old maps hinted might be here. They had found nothing but sand, heat, and the cries of distant desert birds. The heat during the day had been hard, and the nights cold. Still, Amir pushed on, believing that the desert sometimes hides its treasures for those who are patient. That afternoon, a strange sight caught Amir's attention. Far to the east, a cloud of sand was twisting in the air, not like the slow rise of the wind, but like a sudden burst. He raised his hand to stop the group and pointed. They moved towards it slowly, their feet dragging in the sand. As they reached the spot, the wind seemed to grow stronger, pushing away layers of sand as if an invisible hand was clearing the ground. Rafi was the first to notice something unusual in the sand. A corner of dark stone was sticking out. It was not the color of the desert rock they had seen before. It was smooth and shaped almost like part of a doorway. Excitement rushed through the group. They began to dig with their hands and small shovels, brushing away the sand carefully. Bit by bit, the shape became clear. It was an entrance half buried in the dunes, tall and narrow, made of dark stone, with carvings running along the sides. The carvings were unlike anything Amir had ever seen. The lines were sharp and clean, not worn by time, and there was a faint glow in the deep cuts of the symbols, as if light was hidden inside the stone. They stood in silence for a moment. The desert wind seemed to pause. Rafi ran his fingers over the carvings, feeling a slight warmth under his hand. It was strange because the sun had not touched this stone for who knows how long. Amir looked at the team and nodded. They stepped inside slowly, their footsteps echoing in the narrow passage inside. The air was cool and still. The walls were covered with more of the strange glowing symbols. They twisted and curled like rivers of light, forming patterns that seemed alive. Rafi whispered that it felt like the walls were watching them. Amir kept walking, his hand brushing the smooth surface of the wall. The passage led to a wide chamber under the ground. The chamber was unlike any ancient room Amir had seen in his years of exploring. The ceiling was high and shaped like a perfect dome. The floor was made of large dark tiles that reflected the faint light from the walls. At the center stood a tall object covered in dust, yet shining faintly through it. It looked like a great golden box, but its sides were curved and smooth. The air around it seemed to hum softly like the sound of distant thunder. The team gathered around it, their eyes wide. Rafi crouched to look closer and saw small lines of light moving across the surface like tiny rivers of gold. He reached out, but Amir stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. "This is not like anything from the pharaohs," Amir said quietly. "This is something older, something different." They walked around it slowly, trying to see if there was any writing or marks to tell them what it was on the far side. Amir found a small area of carvings. These were different from the glowing symbols on the walls. They showed figures of tall men in strange armor, standing beside what looked like the golden object itself. Above them, a figure wearing a crown like a pharaoh raised a hand toward a sky filled with stars. Beneath the pictures were words in a language none of them had seen before, even without understanding the meaning. Amir felt the weight of the message. Rafi looked at Amir, his eyes bright with curiosity. "What do you think it is?" Amir did not answer. He was looking up at the dome. There were lines of light there, too faint and thin like a map of stars. Some of the points of light seemed to move slowly, as if they were alive. Suddenly a low vibration ran through the floor. It was so soft that first they thought it might be their imagination, but then the hum grew stronger. Dust fell from the ceiling in thin streams. The light on the walls grew brighter, casting golden reflections across their faces. The entrance behind them began to close. The stone slid down with a slow, heavy sound, like the breath of the desert itself, sealing them in one of the team. Members ran to it and tried to push, but it would not move. They were trapped inside with the strange golden object and the glowing walls. Amir told everyone to stay calm. He stepped forward toward the object in the center. The hum grew deeper and the air felt warmer. The light on the surface of the object began to flow faster, like rushing streams. It was as if it was waking up. After a long sleep, the chamber was filled with a golden glow that made the air shimmer. Rafi felt his heart race. He did not know if they had found treasure or danger. Amir stood still, watching as the object seemed to respond to their presence. The hum became a voice, not in words they could hear, but in a feeling that touched their thoughts. It was a message, but they could not yet understand it. Whatever was inside this place had been waiting for someone for a very long time, and now it had been found. The golden object in the center of the chamber seemed almost alive. Now the faint streams of light across its surface had grown brighter, running in smooth curves from top to bottom. The hum in the air felt like a heartbeat, slow but powerful. The team stood around it silent, unsure if they were looking at a tomb or a machine. Amir took a careful step closer. He noticed that the golden surface did not have seams or joints, like something built by human hands. It was one smooth piece, yet there were strange marks on the top, almost like the outline of a lid. Rafi came beside him, his eyes fixed on the flowing light. "It is beautiful," he whispered, "and it is not just gold." Amir nodded quietly, feeling the warmth of the object on his face. Around the sarcophagus, the floor tiles were darker and smoother than the rest of the chamber. They looked as if many feet had stood here long ago. Amir knelt down and brushed away some dust and sand. Beneath it, he found more carvings, small and delicate. They told a story in pictures. A tall man wearing the crown of a pharaoh stood beside the golden sarcophagus. Around him were soldiers, not holding weapons of iron, but strange rods of light. Above them, a sky full of stars was drawn, and in the middle of that sky, a dark shape like a great shadow was shown falling toward the earth. Rafi pointed to the carvings and frowned. "It looks like they were waiting for something from the sky," he said. Amir did not reply. He was reading the feeling of the room, not the meaning of the pictures. Something about this place told him it had been built for more than keeping a body safe. It felt like a warning. One of the team members, Farid, who had been silent, stepped forward. His eyes were on the glowing lines. "Look at how they move," he said softly. "They are not just decoration, they are moving like they are alive." As he spoke, the light on the sarcophagus began to gather near the center. It swirled slowly, forming a ring of gold and white. The hum in the air grew deeper, and the ground trembled just enough to make the dust dance. Rafi stepped back in surprise, but Amir stayed where he was. The glowing ring in the center of the sarcophagus expanded, and then a thin line appeared running from one end to the other. It looked like a seam, yet no tool could have made it so perfectly. The golden lid began to rise without a sound, lifting slowly into the air, and then sliding aside as if pulled by an invisible hand. The team held their breath, expecting to see an ancient mummy inside, but there were no wrappings, no bones. Instead, lying within was a tall figure made of metal and gold. Its shape was like a man, but its body was formed from smooth plates that shone like polished sunlight. Its face was calm and still, with eyes closed, and in the middle of its chest, a faint light pulsed like the beating of a heart. The figure's eyes opened slowly. They glowed a deep blue, casting a soft light across the chamber. The hum in the air shifted, becoming clearer, and then a voice spoke, not in sound, but directly into their minds. "You have entered the chamber of the last guardian." The team froze. The voice was calm, yet carried the weight of centuries. Rafi looked at Amir wide-eyed. He can speak to us." Amir nodded, but did not take his eyes off the Guardian. The Guardian sat up, moving with slow grace. Its metal hands rested on the edge of the sarcophagus. "For thousands of years, I have slept waiting for the signal from the stars. Now it has come again. And I must wake." The voice filled their minds without needing sound. Amir asked carefully, "What is your purpose?" The Guardian turned its head toward him. "I was created by the Pharaoh, not to guard his treasure, but to guard this world, long before your time. An enemy came from the sky seeking to claim the earth. The Pharaoh and his people fought alongside my kind and drove them away. But they knew the enemy would return, so they built the Guardians and placed us in the deep places of the world, to sleep until the day we were needed again." The words echoed in their thoughts, leaving the team silent. The Guardian rose from the sarcophagus, standing taller than any of them. Its eyes glowed brighter for a moment and then dimmed again. Its gaze moved toward the carvings on the wall. "The symbols you see are a record of what happened and what will happen again. The enemy is coming, and this time they will not be so easily turned away." Raffi swallowed hard. "Why now?" he asked. "Why after so long?" The Guardian answered, "Because the enemy's signal has reached this world once more. I have felt it in my sleep, growing stronger each year. Now it is close enough to be seen in the skies if you know where to look for it." Glanced toward Amir, his face pale. "If this is true, we must warn others." Amir kept his eyes on the Guardian. "How can we stop them?" The Guardian stepped away from the sarcophagus. The floor beneath them lit up in rings of gold, showing patterns like a map. Long ago, the Pharaoh hid great machines in secret places across the earth. They can fight the enemy, but they need both human will and Guardian power to work. You must help me reach them before the enemy arrives." The team felt the weight of the Guardian's words. They were not trained soldiers, they were explorers. Yet something deep inside Amir told him this was why they had come here. Not for treasure, not for history, but for the future. The chamber's walls brightened as if hearing the decision in Amir's mind. The glow around the sarcophagus softened, and the lid lowered gently back into place. The Guardian stepped toward the entrance. With a slow rumble, the stone doorway began to open again, letting in the warm light of the desert. As the team followed the Guardian out into the fading daylight, Amir looked back once at the golden sarcophagus. It stood silent once more, but he knew it was not just a coffin. It was the first piece of a much greater mystery. And whatever lay ahead, they had already crossed the line into a world where history and the future were bound together. The sun had almost set by the time the Guardian led the team out of the hidden chamber. The desert sky was painted in deep orange and purple, and a cool wind began to sweep over the dunes. The Guardian moved with steady steps, its feet leaving no deep prints in the sand, as if it was lighter than it looked. The team walked behind it, still trying to believe what they had seen inside the chamber. Amir kept his eyes on the tall figure ahead of him. The Guardian's golden armor caught the last light of the sun, making it shine like fire against the darkening sky. Raffi walked close to Amir, whispering quietly, "Do you think he is the only one?" Amir shook his head. The way he spoke, it sounded like there are more. The Guardian stopped at the top of a dune and turned to face them. Its glowing blue eyes scanned the horizon as if it could see far beyond what human eyes could. "There are others like me sleeping across this world," it said in their minds. "We were placed where the Pharaoh's allies believed the enemy would strike first. But many have been lost to time and buried deep beneath your cities and seas. The enemy is close, so we must find the ones that remain before it is too late." The desert air grew still as the Guardian raised one arm toward the sky. A faint light shone from its palm, projecting an image in the air above them. It was a map of the earth covered in golden lines. Small points of light glowed on the map, each marking a location. Some were bright and steady, others were dim, as if fading away. One of the brighter points pulsed in the middle of the desert, far from where they stood. "We will begin there," the Guardian said. "That place holds another Guardian and the first of the Pharaoh's machines. Without them, we cannot stand against the enemy. Raffi stared at the glowing map, unable to look away. It felt like a doorway into a world of secrets he had never imagined. Farid stepped forward. "How far is it from here?" he asked. The Guardian lowered its arm, and the map faded into the night air. "2 days if we travel without delay," it answered. "The journey will not be safe, for there are things already moving in the desert." The team packed quickly. They carried only what they could hold in small packs. The Guardian needed nothing to survive, but it moved beside them as if guiding them. The night in the desert was cold, but the glow from the Guardian's armor gave them comfort. It moved silently, but every so often it would pause and look toward the horizon, as if hearing something they could nod. By the second day, the dunes began to change shape. The sand was darker, here and scattered with pieces of ancient stone, broken walls, and half-buried pillars, rose like silent watchers from another age. The Guardian stopped in front of a wide, flat area where the sand seemed to sink slightly toward the center. "Beneath this place lies the chamber of the second Guardian," it said. "But it is not sleeping peacefully." Amir felt a shiver at the way the Guardian spoke. They followed it to the center where the sand was soft under their feet. Without warning, the ground began to tremble. A deep rumble rolled through the air, and cracks appeared in the sand, forming wide circles around them. Raffi stumbled, but Amir caught his arm. The sand split open, revealing a dark hole, and from that darkness, something began to rise at. First they saw only the top of a golden helm like the Guardian's, but darker in color. Then the rest of the figure emerged, its armor scratched, and its movements slow. Its eyes glowed not blue, but red like burning coals. The first Guardian stepped forward, placing itself between the team and the newcomer. "This one has been corrupted by the enemy's touch," it said. "It will not know friend." From foe, the corrupted Guardian let out a deep metallic sound and charged. The sand flew in waves as the two golden figures met with a crash that shook the ground. Sparks burst where their armor struck together. The team backed away, watching helplessly. As the battle unfolded, the first Guardian fought with skill, moving like flowing water. The corrupted one struck with raw force, its blows heavy and wild. The fight seemed endless until the first Guardian caught its opponent's arm and forced it to the ground. With one swift movement, it pressed its glowing palm against the other's chest. A burst of golden light flashed, and the red glow in the corrupted Guardian's eyes faded slowly until they went dark. It lay still and silent, its armor cooling in the desert air. The team stepped closer. Raffi whispered, "Is it dead?" The first Guardian shook its head. "No, but it can no longer fight the enemy. Its core has been damaged beyond repair." Amir felt the weight of what they had just seen. If even the Guardians could be corrupted, then the enemy's power was greater than he had imagined. The first Guardian turned toward the open hole in the ground. "Below lies the Pharaoh's first machine," it said. "Come and see what you must protect." They followed it down a smooth ramp that spiraled into the earth. The walls here were lined with gold symbols that lit up as they passed. The air was cool and filled with a faint humming sound. At the bottom they entered a vast chamber filled with rows of strange objects covered in dust. Some looked like weapons, others like parts of a great puzzle. In the center stood the machine. It was shaped like a tall pillar made of stone and gold, but lines of bright energy ran through it. The Guardian stepped forward and placed its hand against the pillar. The hum grew louder, and the entire chamber came alive with light. The walls displayed images of ships in the sky, beams of light striking down at them, and Guardians standing beside human warriors. Amir felt his breath catch. This was not just history. This was a plan left for them long ago. The Guardian turned to face them. "This is the power the Pharaoh left for your people. With it, we can fight the enemy, but only if humans and Guardians work together." Raffi's eyes shone in the golden light. "Then we will work together," he said. The Guardian looked at each of them, and for a moment, its glowing eyes softened. "Then let the awakening begin." The chamber's light grew brighter, as if answering the call somewhere deep in the earth. Other machines began to stir, and in the dark skies far away, something else began to move toward Earth. The golden light in the underground chamber faded slowly, leaving the team in a calm, dim glow. The Guardian stepped away from the tall pillar. Its armor still shining softly in the quiet air, Amir stood with his hands resting on the strap of his pack, his thoughts heavy. He felt the weight of what the Guardian had told him. The enemy was no longer a story from the past. It was real, and it was coming. Rafi looked at the glowing symbols on the walls. They showed strange shapes moving through the black sky of space. Some were sharp like blades, others wide and heavy like shields. Each one carried streams of smaller shapes following behind them. They moved toward a small blue and green world that looked exactly like Earth. The Guardian spoke again, its voice steady in their minds. These are the ones who came before and will come again. They are called the Dusk. Long ago, they reached this world to strip it of its life and leave it empty. The Pharaoh saw them with his eyes and fought them with all his strength, but he knew his time would not be enough to stop them forever. So he built us and hid the machines in the deep places of this Earth. Farid stepped closer, studying the moving images. If they came once and were stopped, why would they try again? The Guardian turned its glowing eyes toward him because they do not stop until their work is complete. They will return again and again until nothing remains. The map of Earth appeared again in the air above them. Now the golden points were joined by dark moving shapes. They came from the edge of the map and moved slowly toward the center. The Guardian pointed toward a cluster of dark shapes far away, but closing in. This is where they are now. In 3 cycles of your moon, they will reach this world. The air in the chamber seemed colder at those words. Rafi felt a tightening in his chest. 3 months was no time at all. He looked at Amir, but the older man's face was unreadable. Amir's mind was already working through the steps ahead. The Guardian continued, the machines alone cannot win. The Dusk have learned from their past defeat. They will bring new weapons and new ways to break your world. You must be ready to fight alongside us. Humans must stand on the ground and in the sky. If you do not, this world will fall. The chamber grew silent, except for the faint hum of the pillar. Then Farid spoke quietly. How do we reach the other Guardians and machines in time? The Guardian's voice came again. There are paths hidden under your deserts, forests, and oceans. They are older than any road built by your people. Some are broken, some still whole. We will use what we can and rebuild what we must. They left the chamber carrying nothing but the memory of what they had seen outside. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving the desert in deep blue shadows. The Guardian walked ahead, leading them back toward the camp they had made the night before. Rafi kept glancing at the sky. He felt as if at any moment the stars might shift and reveal the enemy ships. But the night was still, and the stars shone without movement when they reached the camp. Amir lit a small fire for warmth. They sat around it, their faces lit in orange glow, while the Guardian stood just beyond the circle of light. It did not need rest, but it watched the horizon as if expecting danger. Rafi finally asked the question in his mind. If the enemy is so far away, why does it feel like they are already here? The Guardian looked down at him. Because their scouts move ahead of them. Some have already reached your world. They hide in shadow and silence, waiting to strike when the main fleet arrives. Fire popped softly, sending a trail of sparks into the night air. Farid shifted uncomfortably. So we are not just waiting for them, we are already being hunted. The Guardian gave no answer, but the meaning was clear. The next morning, they began their journey toward the next marked point on the Guardian's map. They traveled across the dunes until the desert gave way to rocky ground and dry hills. Here the wind carried the smell of stone and old earth. Amir noticed faint lines in the rock, as if it had been cut by tools, not by nature. The Guardian explained that these were part of the ancient paths built to move between the hidden chambers. Much of it had been buried by time, but some parts still connected the sleeping Guardians. By the 3rd day, clouds gathered in the sky, dark and heavy. Though no rain fell, the Guardian stopped and looked upward. The air here is wrong, it said. The enemy signal is close. As if to prove its words, a low sound rolled through the hills, not like thunder, but like the deep hum of machines. Raffi gripped his pack tighter, his eyes scanning the shadows between the rocks. They found the source at the edge of a wide canyon. A dark shape rested there, unlike any stone or metal they had seen on Earth. It was smooth black and curved like part of a shell. The Guardian moved forward slowly. This is one of their scouts. It fell here to watch and send word to the fleet. We must destroy it before it can speak again. Before they could act, the black shell split open, and a tall figure stepped out. Its body was dark metal with thin arms ending in sharp hooks. Its head turned toward them, and its eyes glowed faint red light. It moved fast across the ground, covering the space between them in seconds. The Guardian met it head-on. The clash sent dust flying, and the sound echoed through the canyon. The enemy scout fought with speed, but the Guardian's strength held it back. Amir pulled Raffi and Farid behind the cover of a large rock while the fight raged. The Guardian struck once hard enough to send the scout crashing against the canyon wall. It tried to rise, but the Guardian placed a hand against its chest, and a bright burst of golden light flashed. When the light faded, the scout's eyes were dark, and its body lay still. The Guardian turned back to them. They will know we are moving. Now, it said, the fleet will come faster. We must awaken the rest before they arrive. They continued their journey with a new urgency. The clouds above seemed to move quicker, and the wind carried a strange electric taste. Amir knew the countdown had begun. Far above them, beyond the stars, the dusk were coming, and soon the whole world would see them. The wind over the rocky hills grew sharper as the days passed. Clouds gathered, often now blocking the sun and turning the desert light into a dull gray. The Guardian led the way with steady steps, never slowing and never tiring. Amir, Raffi, and Farid followed, carrying only the supplies they could not leave behind. The rest of their equipment had been hidden in the first chamber for safety. The Guardian had marked the path to the next location on the glowing map it carried within its core. It was far across the desert, toward a line of low mountains that looked black against the horizon. According to the Guardian, the second machine hidden there could control the flow of energy to the other devices across the world. Without it, the weapons of the Pharaoh would not work for long. They had to reach it before the enemy came too close. Every night, when they camped, the Guardian stood watch without rest. It would face the horizon, and its eyes would glow faint blue as if searching for something. Far away, Raffi often lay awake, watching the faint light from the Guardian's armor. It made him feel safer, but also reminded him that their enemy was real and close. On the third night, Amir noticed the stars seemed fewer than before. The Guardian explained that it was not clouds, but dust in the high air caused by the enemy ships moving closer. The thought chilled Amir more than the desert wind. It meant the time they had was already shorter than they believed. By day, the journey became harder. The land rose into uneven stone ridges and narrow paths between cliffs. Sometimes the wind howled through the rock, making voices that sounded almost human. Farid asked the Guardian if the enemy could be hiding in such places. The Guardian nodded once and told them to keep moving without stopping for long. On the fifth day, they saw something strange on the horizon. It looked like a tall pillar standing alone, but as they drew closer, they saw it was broken in half. The top lay in pieces on the ground, and the surface was covered in black scorch marks. The Guardian studied it for a long time. This was one of the old signal towers, it said. The enemy found it long ago and destroyed it, so we could not wake easily, but its base may still hold power we can use. They searched the base of the tower and found a hidden door under a slab of stone. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of dust, and metal rows of thin crystal rods stood in the walls, glowing faintly like trapped stars. The Guardian removed several and placed them in a compartment in its arm. These will help us reach the mountain chamber faster, it said. They are the keys to open its gate. That night, as they camped near the broken tower, the Guardian spoke again. The machines ahead are powerful, but they are also dangerous if the enemy takes them. If that happens, they will turn the weapons meant to protect you against your world. The team sat in silence around the small fire. The thought of such power in the hands of the dusk made their stomachs tighten. By the next day, the Black Mountains were close. Their slopes were steep and covered in loose rock that shifted under each step. It took the whole day to climb the lower paths, and when night fell, they camped on a narrow ledge. The wind here was strong and carried a deep sound from within the mountain, as if something massive was moving inside. Raffi could not sleep. He kept hearing the low hum and wondering if it was the machine they sought or something else. The following morning, they found the entrance. It was not a doorway, but a split in the rock just wide enough for a person to pass. Inside, the walls were smooth and shaped by hands long ago. Golden lines ran along the stone, glowing faintly in the dim light. The guardian placed the crystal rods from the tower into slots beside the passage. One by one, the lines brightened until the walls shone like sunlight. They entered a great hall deep inside the mountain. In the center stood a massive structure shaped like a wheel laid flat upon the ground. It was made of stone, gold, and something clear like glass, yet harder. Within the clear sections, light swirled in slow spirals. The guardian placed its hands on the edge of the wheel, and the swirling light began to move faster. The whole chamber thrummed with power, and a low, deep tone filled the Aramir. Raffi and Farid stood back, watching in awe as the wheel rose slightly from the floor. Turning slowly in the air, the guardian's voice came to them. This is the heart of the network. Its power will flow to every other machine across the earth. But to keep it alive, humans must guard the energy cores in each location. If the enemy breaks even one, the whole network will fall. Before Amir could speak, sudden sharp sound echoed through the chamber. It was not from the machine, but from the entrance. The guardian turned quickly, its eyes brightening. "They are here." From the shadows of the passage, several figures emerged. They were shaped like men, but their bodies were dark metal with limbs too long and thin. Their eyes glowed faint red light, and their movements were fast. The team backed away as the guardian stepped forward to meet them. The fight was quick and fierce. The guardian's golden strikes broke the enemy's metal limbs, but more kept coming through the narrow passage. Amir grabbed a fallen rod from one of the scouts and swung it like a staff. To his surprise, it struck with a flash of light, forcing one of the attackers back. Raffi and Farid joined in, using whatever tools they carried to keep the enemy from reaching the wheel. The guardian fought like a storm, its movements flowing yet strong. One by one, the enemy scouts fell, their bodies sparking before lying still. When the last one fell, the guardian returned to the wheel and pressed its hands to it again. The hum rose until the walls shook, and a beam of golden light shot upward through the ceiling. Far above in the sky, it would be seen by any who looked toward the mountain. "It is done," the guardian said at last. "The network is alive, but now the enemy knows exactly where we are." Team exchanged glances, knowing the meaning of those words. They have gained the power they needed, but they had also drawn the attention of the dusk. From this moment, every step would be faster, every risk greater. The race against time had truly begun. The golden beam from the mountain burned in the sky for many hours. Its light could be seen from far deserts, cold seas, and deep forests. It was both a signal of hope and a warning. Every human settlement that saw it whispered that the guardians had awakened, and every ship of the dusk turned toward it with silent speed. Amir, Raffi, and Farid stood outside the mountain chamber, watching the bright line reach into the clouds. The guardian stood beside them, silent and still as stone. Only the faint glow of its eyes showed that it was active. "We have no more days to prepare," it said at last. "The enemy will arrive before the next sun is high. We must meet them before they reach this heart, or all will be lost." The team moved quickly down the slopes, carrying what weapons they had. The guardian guided them to a narrow valley that lay between two steep ridges. Here the rocks could hide them from above and force the enemy to come in small numbers. "This will be our wall," the guardian said. "Hold it until the light fades from the sky, and the core is hidden again." As night fell, the wind grew cold, and the valley darkened. They lit no fire for fear of being seen from the air. In the distance, low shapes moved against the starlight. They were the enemy ships gliding without sound. One by one, they landed at the edge of the valley, and dark figures stepped out. First wave came quickly, moving like shadows over the rocks. Their eyes glowed faint red, and their limbs bent in strange ways. The guardian met them at the center of the valley, its strikes flashing gold against the night. Amir and Rafi fought at its side, striking with staffs tipped with crystal. Each hit sent sparks into the air and forced the enemy back. Farid worked from behind, throwing small charges made from the tower crystals. When they exploded, they filled the air with a blinding light that slowed the attackers, but the dusk did not stop. Each time one fell, another stepped forward, and soon the valley floor was littered with broken metal. The sound of the fight echoed against the cliffs, carrying far into the desert. Amir's arms ached, and his breath came hard, but he did not stop. Every moment they held the valley was a moment the mountain remained safe. Then a deep roar came from above. A larger enemy ship had entered the valley. It was shaped like a black spear, and its surface shimmered like water. From its side dropped a figure taller than the guardian itself. Its body was heavy, and its arms ended in blades that glowed with cold light. The smaller enemy scouts stepped aside to let it pass. The guardian moved forward to meet it. "This is a warden of the dusk," it said, without turning. "Stay behind me." The warden struck first with a swing that cut deep into the rock. The guardian blocked the blow, and the impact sent a wave of dust through the valley. They traded strikes faster than the human eye could follow. Each hit rang like a bell and lit the night with sparks. Amir, Rafi, and Farid could only watch at first, their own fight forgotten. But more enemy scouts began to move around the sides of the battle, heading toward the mountain path. Amir shouted to the others, and they rushed to block the way. Farid threw his last crystal charges into the path, filling it with light and smoke. Rafi struck down 2 scouts with his staff, while Amir faced a third alone. It leapt at him, but he caught its arm and pulled it into the ground with all his strength. The fight left his body shaking. But the path remained closed in the center of the valley. The guardian and the warden fought on. At last the guardian struck the warden's chest with both hands, and a burst of golden light tore through it. The warden staggered, then fell with a crash that shook the stones. The red glow in its eyes faded, and the valley grew silent for a moment. But the silence did not last. More ships were coming, their shadows sliding across the stars. The guardian turned to the humans. "The valley cannot hold much longer," it said. "We must lead them away from the mountain." Amir did not understand at first. "If we leave, they will follow us," he said. "Yes," the guardian answered. "That is the only way the heart will survive." There was no time to argue. They gathered their remaining supplies and moved out of the valley toward the open desert. The guardian moved at the front, its light dimmed to hide them from the air. Behind them, the ships landed in the valley, finding only the broken warden and the shattered scouts. Moments later, they rose again, turning toward the fleeing shapes on the sand. All through the night, the chase went on. The humans ran until their legs felt heavy as stone. The guardian never slowed, guiding them over dunes and ridges to break the enemy's sight. When dawn touched the sky, they reached a narrow canyon where the walls rose high and close. Here the guardian stopped and faced them. From archaeology reached a narrow canyon where the walls rose high and close. Here the guardian stopped and closed his. "Here you go on alone," he said. "I will remain," and draw them in. Amir's throat tightened. "You will not survive." The guardian's eyes brightened faintly. "If the heart lives, I will have done my task. And perhaps we will meet again when the fight is truly over." Before they could speak more, the sound of the enemy ships grew louder. The guardian stepped into the open mouth of the canyon and raised its arms. Golden light flared across its armor, brighter than the sun. The ships turned toward it, and the humans slipped into a hidden crack in the canyon wall. They watched for a moment as the Guardian charged toward the approaching shadows. Then the rock closed around them, and they ran deeper into the darkness far behind them. In the open desert, the sound of battle rose again. The fate of the Guardian was unknown, but the heart of the network remained. Safe in the mountain, for now Earth had one more day of hope, and the fight was far from over. The narrow canyon carried the sound of their steps for a long time. Amir, Rafi, and Farid moved quickly through the twisting path until the light of the sun was gone behind the high walls. The air was cool and still, and the only sound was their own breathing. None of them spoke for a while, because each was thinking about the Guardian left behind it. Last they reached a wider space where the rock opened to show a hidden valley. It was green with small streams and trees, unlike the desert. Outside, in the center, stood a tall stone pillar, carved with symbols that glowed faint gold. The sight filled them with a strange calm, as if the place was far from war. Farid touched the pillar and felt a warm pulse move through his hand. "This is part of the heart network," he said. "It is like the one in the mountain, but smaller and may be able to call for help." They decided to rest for a short time and then search for a way to send a signal. Amir sat by the stream, watching the water pass over the stones. He thought about the Guardian's words and wondered if they would truly meet again. Rafi moved around the valley, looking for high ground, while Farid studied the pillar. Hours passed, and the sun moved low in the sky before anything changed. The first sign of danger was a shadow moving across the valley floor. Rafi shouted from a ridge that ships were coming. "They must have tracked us," he called. Farid worked quickly to touch the glowing symbols in the right order. A hum filled the air and the gold light on the pillar grew brighter. The ground beneath them shook, and a beam of light rose straight into the sky. The enemy ships turned at once and dropped toward the valley. Amir and Rafi moved to block the narrow paths that led inside. The first wave came fast, leaping from the rocks with strange weapons in their hands. The humans fought with all their strength, using staffs and stones and even bare hands when needed. Farid stayed at the pillar, guarding it while the beam rose higher and brighter, but the enemy numbers grew. Soon the narrow paths were filled with dark shapes and red eyes. Amir's arms ached, and his vision blurred from dust and heat. Then above the sound of battle came another deeper roar. It was not the sound of the dusk ships. It was something greater. From the clouds above came three huge shapes of shining metal. They were not like the ships of the dusk. They were smooth silver with wide wings and blue light under them. They moved with a speed that shook the air. From each ship came beams of pure white that struck the enemy forces and scattered them like leaves in wind. Rafi's eyes widened. "Those are not ours," he said. Farid looked up and smiled for the first time in days. "The Heart Network has answered. These are the Wardens of Light." The silver ships landed at the edge of the valley, and tall figures stepped out. Their armor was bright, and their eyes glowed soft blue. One of them came forward and spoke in a voice that carried like music. "You have held the line well, humans of Earth. The Guardian sent word before the battle. It told us where to find you." Amir stepped forward. "Is the Guardian alive?" he asked. The tall figure looked at him for a moment. "It stands still, though much damaged. We will bring it back when the field is safe." The Wardens joined the fight, and the battle turned quickly. The Dusk forces fell back, trying to reach their ships, but the silver craft cut off their escape. Soon the valley was clear, except for broken metal and the sound of running water. The beam from the pillar slowly faded as the signal was complete. The Warden leader spoke again. "We will repair the Guardian and strengthen the Heart Network, but you must be ready, for the war is not over. The Dusk have many worlds and many armies. Earth will be tested again." Mayor Rafi and Farid agreed to help. They knew now that the fight was not only for their own land, but for every place touched by the Heart Network. The Wardens gave them supplies and taught them how to use new tools and weapons. In the days that followed, the Guardian was brought back to the valley. Its armor was marked, and one arm was broken, but its eyes glowed again when it saw them. "You have done well," it said. "The heart is safe for now, and you have found allies. The path ahead will be long, but together we will stand, under the care of the wardens." The hidden valley became a base for humans and their new allies. Messages were sent across the stars calling others to join the cause. The Heart Network pulsed brighter each day, carrying hope from one world to another. Amir, Rafi, and Farid trained with the Guardian, learning not only how to fight but how to lead others one. Evening, as the sun set behind the canyon, the Guardian stood with them on the ridge. "Look there," it said, pointing to the horizon. Far away in the desert, small lights moved together like a river of stars. "Those are more of our people coming from the mountains and coasts. They have heard of what you have done, and they come to stand with you." Amir felt a deep pride and a quiet fear. He knew the next battles would be greater and harder, but he also knew they would not face them alone. The valley echoed with the sound of voices as the first groups arrived, carrying banners made from old cloth and painted with the sign of the golden beam. It was the mark of hope for Earth and for all free worlds. As night fell, the stars above seemed brighter than before. The Heart Network's glow could be seen in the sky like a faint line joining the worlds together. The Guardian spoke softly. "The final dawn is not the end, but the beginning. From this night forward, we fight not just to survive, but to free all who live under the shadow of the dusk." And so the humans of Earth and their new allies prepared for the long war ahead. They knew that darkness would come again, but they also knew that the light would rise to meet it. In the Valley of the Heart, under the watch of the Guardian, the fire of hope burned without end.